Hi, and welcome to a new video. In this week's video, we will take a closer look at the latest SWATCH collaboration. And this time the collaboration is not with Amiga, but with BLANCPAIN. And what most people, or what some people don't know, is that BLANCPAIN is also another SWATCH brand. So that's what makes it quite convenient to do this collaboration for SWATCH. In this video, I will give you a quick overview of the watches, and we will discuss the question if this watch is actually better than the previous Amiga collaboration, and if it's worth buying this watch. We will talk about the question what this watch actually is and why it does exist. We will talk about why this watch is better than the previous collaboration. We will ask the question why it is still not that good actually. We will take a closer look at the movement, at the SWATCH System 51 movement. And in the end, we will ask the question if this watch really is just brilliant marketing and nothing else. Why does this watch exist? Well, we've seen the previous collaboration with the Omega Speedmaster, and what became quite clear is that this is obviously a marketing thing. It sells watches, it sells actually a lot of watches, and it's making Swatch a lot of money, but it's also driving attention to other Swatch brands, first to Amiga and now to BLANCPAIN, and this also raises and increases their sales. So that's why this watch exists. And obviously also because watches are supposed to be fun, and what could be more fun than a cheap disposable version of a luxury item? But really, with the collaboration between Swatch and BLANCPAIN, it's about the 70th anniversary of the 50 Fathoms from BLANCPAIN, which is one of the real true OG early dive watches. And I believe it was even a couple of months earlier than the Rolex Submariner that this watch was released. The Swatch group celebrated this BLANCPAIN not necessarily with a special edition BLANCPAIN, but actually with a Swatch BLANCPAIN 50 Fathoms. And that's what we're talking about here today. This watch is a blend of the design of a 50 Fathoms from BLANCPAIN with the technology of the System 51 line of watches from Swatch. Let's get some general dimensions out of the way. This Swatch BLANCPAIN has a diameter of 42.3 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 48 millimeters, and a height of 14.4 millimeters. So it's not a small watch, but it's also not a giant watch. It's really pretty much average of what is worn today, and it's pretty wearable for most people. So overall, the dimensions are pretty standard. Let's talk about why I think that this watch is actually better than the previous Swatch collaboration with Omega. First of all, this watch is way more usable. You have way more ways to interact with the watch. It is actually a mechanical watch, which is more true to BLANCPAIN, since when BLANCPAIN was reinvented by Jean-Claude Biver, he made a statement that no BLANCPAIN will ever have anything else than a mechanical movement. So it was stated that BLANCPAIN will never have a quartz watch. And Swatch actually stayed true to that, and they were able to do it because they had a System 51 movement to use. The watch has way more details than I think the Omega had. It sort of looked like the Omega Speedmaster, but honestly the dial layout, I didn't like that. And this watch really is like what you imagine when you hear of a collaboration between two brands of that different caliber. So the watch is more like the original, and that, in my opinion, makes it much more attractive. We have water resistance, which is great because you can take this watch really into the water, and that makes it the perfect fun summer watch because you don't have to worry about it, and that's actually great. The overall design of this watch is very cool, in my opinion, especially with the Antarctic versions. I think the other colors are a little bit loud and a little bit too harsh, and they don't exactly match, in my opinion, the oceans that they are attributed to. But yeah, I think the design is much more refined than it was with the Omega. There's way more ways to interact with the watch because of increased functionality, and I think that's why people will love it all the way more and will wear it all the way more than they might wear the Omega. And it also has a better strap, which I think is a great deal because we now have a strap that we sort of know, and we sort of know what we can expect from it. I always thought the Omega Swatch Velcro strap looked horrible in pictures, and I cannot imagine how that thing wears, and it just looked incredibly cheap. I think they really did a way better job with this collaboration than they did with the Omega. And let's talk about why I still think this watch is not great, or maybe not even good. Well, it is still a disposable watch. It is still a cheap version of the real thing. The problem with it is that it is not serviceable. It is not intended to be serviced. The movement in this watch, although it is technically very interesting, cannot be serviced. It cannot be taken apart, serviced, or replaced. If you walk out of the store and you drop it and the balance staff breaks, you're done. The watch is gone. You can't replace it. If you leave the crown open, you have water ingress, boom, the watch is done. You can't do anything about it. And even if you wear it for 1, 2, or 3 years and you really enjoy it, and then someday it stops working, it's gone. You can't do anything about it. It still is a disposable object, which has nothing to do with the fact that the movement is poorly made or the watch is poorly made. It's just intended not to be serviced. And it's not intended to exist for a long time, which is still kind of sad. And especially if you think about how expensive this watch is. This watch comes in at $400. And if you think about that, the previous collaboration was $260. And I even thought that one was expensive. This one is even more expensive. And of course, you get more functionality and you get more for your money, basically. But truthfully, and I might be stepping a little bit out of my knowledge here, I would say that watch, even though it's mechanical, costs Swatch not more than $10 to $15 to make. So the rest of it is premium. And also, everything that's produced for this watch stays within the Swatch group. The watch it benefits, the BLANCPAIN, also is part of the Swatch group, and even Swatch is completely vertically integrated. So all of the money that has to be spent in the production stays within the Swatch group. They're making bank with this watch. And therefore, I still think it's a little bit expensive. Because think of it, at least basically the difference between the $260 for the Moonswatch, which already was a lot, and the $400 you're spending now, you're basically spending it for the name and the design. The movement in this watch is, I think, pretty interesting. What moves this watch is a Swatch System 51 movement, which first of all has an impressive power reserve of 90 hours. That's crazy if you think about it. The movement is completely industrially made. There's no human hand touching this movement to build it. It's completely built by machinery and robots. It's made from 51 parts and a single screw. It's made up from 5 modules who are pre-produced and then sort of put together, and I mean, technically it's incredibly impressive. Which surprised me the most when I looked at it was how well Swatch expects this movement to run. It's expected to run in a range from -5 to +15 seconds a day. Think about how crazy precise that is for a cheaply made movement like that. But the movement also has its drawbacks. The most significant, I think, are the fact that this movement cannot be serviced. It cannot be taken apart because the different modules are basically welded to each other, and there's no way to, take it apart and service it, which is really unfortunate. The other thing is that there's also no possibility to adjust it because there's no adjustment built into the movement. When this movement is produced, it is laser adjusted, and it basically stays like that for its entire lifetime. So it's really an incredible piece of engineering, but you can't really interact with it or save it or preserve it for a long time, which is kind of sad because, 10 years from now, this watch will basically, it might still run, but it won't be precise and you can't do anything about it. And then again, for $400, I would really enjoy having a movement that I can do something about it. If you buy a Citizen or a Seiko, you can service the movement. The watch is half the price or $100 less, and you can replace the movement, you can upgrade the movement. This decision has probably a lot more to do with how the business model of Swatch operates. There are sort of two hearts beating in my chest. I, on one hand, think this movement is pretty amazing, and on the other hand, I think it's pretty sad, and I don't really want it. It doesn't really speak to me on the other hand. So, yeah, this is my opinion about it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on new videos in the future. And you can also follow me on Instagram for more content. You find the link for Instagram in the video description. If you have any watchmaking related questions, or if you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to comment them in the comment section down below. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the next video again.